Yesterday was World Orphans Day, and World Orphans Day is marked annually on the second Monday of November, and it aims to draw attention to the problems of children deprived of their families. Now, today in the studio, we have Juliet Itsekor. She is the founder of Juii Quincy Orphanage. You're welcome to the studio, ma'am. Welcome.
Thank you, ma'am.
TV. All right, so here are a few facts, on the orphans around the world. There are around 153 million orphaned children worldwide.
And of course, we have 2.1 million more children becoming orphans every year in Africa alone. Food for fans, every 18 seconds, a child becomes an orphan.
And that is actually, by food for orphans. All right, now 400,000 orphans die every year of malnutrition.
And we also have food for orphans. 8 out of 10 children orphaned by AIDS live in sub-Saharan Africa. And that's according to the UNICEF.
That's quite a huge number, by the way.
Very,
and yes, 99% of orphans will never become adopted. And this is still a report by Food for Orphans.
Well, very interesting. You also have that there are estimated over 1.2 million trafficked child each year globally. That's also according to the UNICEF. 20 million children are orphaned in India. The SOS children are saying that villages out of the 21.3 million refugees world are under 18 years old. And that's according to UNHCR.
Orphans have a life expectancy of less than 30 years old if not provided with support. That is yet another fact, and it is an appalling one, if I do say so. And to answer some of our questions, like we said earlier, welcome in Juliet Itsekor. All right, let's move on to the first question. Why did you decide to go into orphan care?
Thank you very much. I decided to go into orphan care right from a very tender age, because myself, I'm an orphan. So growing up was not easy for me. So at a point, I told myself that if I'm able to find myself a shelter, the first thing I'm going to start doing is to take care of orphans. So that's why I'm into orphanage work.
That's interesting, because that's not an area where many people aspire, to engage in. You said you started, thinking about that right from an early age and all of that. Now, what did you do to eventually, start doing what you're doing now in terms of preparing yourself, to take on this responsibility?
After school, I started working as a teacher. I taught in many schools, after which I was able to start business. I stopped the teaching and I started business, selling of second-hand clothes. So from there, I was able to acquire a piece of land, which I started building on it little by little. And when I was able to raise a shelter for myself, so I started adopting those odd orphans. I started from my community first, my village. We have some orphans there, so I picked them, like 4 of them, and I started with them. Gradually, we started growing to where we are today.
That's very interesting. So you bought the land,
yes,
with the
money made from
plan,
thrift,
with the plan to do an orphanage, and you raised the structure with the plan to also have that orphanage there.
With the support of family members. It's not like I did everything myself. Yeah.
Okay, is your orphanage registered with the government?
Yes, it's registered with the government.
Okay, all right. In Nigeria, it's actually common to find orphanages where children are poorly cared for. How do you think orphanages in Nigeria, or can you tell us how orphanages in Nigeria are regulated?
Yes, orphanages in Nigeria are regulated by some bodies, like we have social welfare. They regulate, and then we have the local government. There is a branch of, I think, still social welfare, gender department in Buhari. Like where I am I'm under Buhari local government. So we have a body there too that regulates us. And then before you are allowed to start running an orphanage, you have to register with CAC, and then you also go attend a workshop with EFCC. So they will brief you and tell you some things that you are supposed to do, especially in the area of money laundering. Okay. So I think these are the bodies that.
Okay, so you're saying, like, for example, those orphanages that are not regulated, you know, they engage in, you know, a lot of vices, like you said, money laundering and
yes,
the rest.
And some do trafficking, as I heard.
Okay.
Yes.
So how is that dangerous to the children in the orphanages?
It's dangerous to them because by the time a child is falls into that kind of an orphanage, they may either sell the child out or give the child to the wrong person, and that alone can bring problems to the child. The child will have some problems while growing up.
So for how long have you been operating your orphanage?
Close to 5 years now.
Okay, and how has the journey been, you know, for you in this endeavor? Like, what are the common challenges that you experience in all these 5 years, you know, raising children that are orphans?
It's not been easy. We've been passing through a lot of challenges, like taking care of them, feeding them, sending them to school, and also we don't have access to facilities like healthcare facilities. So that area, we really find it difficult. Once a child gets sick, sometimes we have to go over the counter to buy drugs, medications for them, which is not really good. But because if the money is not readily available, we don't have choice but to just buy them drugs over the counter. So that area has been a very big challenge for us, taking care of their health, sending them to school, and also feeding them.
So what was the size of your orphanage, and isn't it much better to have them, you know, trained, you know, by teachers instead of like sending them to school and all of that?
Yes, that's what we are trying to do now. We have a nursery, 2 blocks of nursery and primary in my orphanage, where we teach them. I employ 2 teachers because sending them outside was not easy, paying the school fees. So I set up a small school inside the compound. So I have 2 teachers plus myself, so we teach them. But once they get past that primary level, they just have to go out. We have to send them to secondary schools, and we don't have secondary school in the orphanage. We don't have the facilities to take them through secondary school. So we send them outside to school. So that alone, we have to be paying the fees and buying their books and their other things that they need.
Okay, so how do you come in contact with these orphans? Do people bring them to your institution? Do you go out looking for them?
No, I don't go out looking for them. I get them from different sources. Okay. Like, I started with 4 kids, which I told you I brought from my own community. So when I started, and later people started getting to know us. Some would just call us and tell us, we have children here. Like last year, they called me from a place in Masaka to come and pick up 4 children that they lost their father like 3 years back, and then all of a sudden they now lost their mom. So no one to take care of them. So I traveled down to Masaka to pick those kids. They are there with us now. Some, they will bring them themselves. People will bring them to us. Like an uncle brought 2 children from Enugu that they lost both parents. So we get them from different sources. And some come to abandon their children with us. Like the youngest child in my orphanage now is 2 months old. 2 months ago, a woman walked into the orphanage and she told us, I don't know if she lied, that she's an orphan, and she came with 3 other children. She's an orphan. She lost her husband last year, and then she was heavily pregnant, and she doesn't have where to keep them. That the landlord just kicked them out. So we accepted her and the 3 kids. And 2 months later, she put to bed. Immediately after she put to bed, she ran away. Now, right now, the children are at the orphanage, 4 of them. So I had to take them down to social welfare and then to police station in Kubwa just to register the case, because that's what they told us if such occurrences take place. So the children are there with me now. So we get them from different sources like that.
Okay. What level of background checks do you conduct before, accepting these children? Because I remember a story of a particular girl in Lagos who was kidnapped and later found at an orphanage. So what level of background checks do you conduct to ascertain that these children really are orphans?
What we were told is once they bring them, we should snap them.
Okay.
Then take those pictures to the police station and then also to social welfare. So that's just what I do basically. Once they come in and tell me their stories, I wouldn't know if it's true. So what I do is I snap the person and the children, the person that brought the children. I'll snap them, then give them a paper to write down, tell us the story or the background of the children, where they are from, their age, things like that before we adopt them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, why do you feel the need to do this? Running an orphanage is such a huge responsibility.
Yes.
What keeps you going? Why do you do this?
I just have that passion. It's a passion that keeps me going. I just love being with them. It's something I told you from childhood, because myself, I'm an orphan. I lost my mom when I was 6, and then later on, before I get to age 18, I lost my dad. The person that saw me through school was my uncle, that I call my dad. So that's passion. Because of what I went through while growing up, I just felt that so many other children are passing through such. So they need help.
What were those experiences like? Was it like you were unfairly treated while growing up? The person that eventually took on the responsibility to raise you and all of that. What were those kind of experiences that you had?
The experience was tough because when I lost my dad, I was still in secondary school. So I was left with my stepmom. So she really tortured me while growing up. At times I have to stay back while my mates are going to school just to fetch water. We used to have 2 drums of then. She would ask me to fill them up because she was selling mama put then. So I would start up very early in the morning, like 6. I'll start fetching water. And before you know it, the annoying part is I should start using it, because I used to use this big jerry can, and I would go 9 times to fill 1 drum. So then I'll calculate. I said, okay, by now, maybe by 7:30 or 8, I should be done. But before you know it, 9 o'clock, I'll still be in the house, because when I'm fetching, she'll be busy using from the water. So the experience was not easy. And most times when I return from school, she sells food, but she won't give me the food that I want to eat. She will have to wait until she finished selling her food, the leftovers, before she will allow me eat. So growing up was not easy for me.
So what kind of setting does your institution have? Is it a family setting or like a boarding school setting?
It's just like a family setting, because I live there with them, with my other kids. I have 2 kids, 2 children, my own biological children.
Okay.
So we all live together in the orphanage. So it's like a family setting. Yes.
I believe you're married?
Yes, I'm married.
Okay, so how is your husband, partnering with you in this endeavor?
At first, it wasn't easy accepting my visions, but as time went by, when I persisted, he accepted it. Okay. Yes.
So how about your staff? Because you definitely cannot be taking care of the children alone. Do you have do you have staff that actually help out?
Yes.
And supervisors as well?
Yes. I have 2 teachers, a male and a female. Then I have 1 other woman, elderly woman, that helps in the cooking. I wouldn't say they are well trained, but they have experience, because They too have a similar, like the other teacher, she too, she's a widow. So she lost her husband and she's having 2 kids too, who are also with her there at the orphanage.
Okay,
So,
how do you raise funding for the orphanage, taking care of the children?
well-meaning Nigerians and some kind-hearted people come to assist us from time to time. But apart from that, I do other things to raise money to care for the orphans. I don't just depend on people. I do other things, like I do farming. I do fish farming at the back of the orphanage. So from there I get fish that we use for the children, because buying fish and meat is not easy. Then again, the teaching that I do, I went around my community so that other parents that cannot afford their children to go to big schools or bigger schools, they also bring their children to the orphanage. So we have like 15 children coming from outside. So they also pay small money, which I also add up with the little farming to support myself and the children.
Okay, is getting people to adopt these children an issue? Is it a major issue?
It's an issue because people don't want to adopt children that are not theirs. So even if they want to adopt, they start giving you choices. They start telling you they need a newly born baby of so months, or they need so age. And maybe you don't have that age. The age you have, they don't want. They will tell you that they need a child that from the age of maybe 2 years. And maybe you have like 10 years, 12, like that. They will say no, they want the ones that will grow up to know them. That these ones are already old. So they are not willing to adopt those other grown-up children. They start giving you age limits. That's the problem.
Okay, finally, what are the kind of ways that you would want, government help or assistance in what you do, and how well have you enjoyed it?
I really need support from the government, especially in the area of health. That's the major area that is giving us concern. Once the child gets sick, honestly, we start running helter-skelter. In the middle of the night, the child starts convulsing. You don't have a hospital or any hospital facility that we can take the child to. So if the government can help in that area, we'll be very, very happy. Like maybe giving us or a scheme like this NHIS people do. If the government can start up a scheme for the orphans like that, so that anytime they get sick, we can just take them to the hospitals where they will be catered for. I think we'll be happy.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on the program and sharing your experience with us. Running the orphanage, Juii Quincy Orphanage.
Yes.
And we've been speaking with Julie Itsekor. She is the founder of Juii Quincy Orphanage here in Abuja, specifically in Buari, talking to us about her experience running an orphanage. Like we said, today is World Orphans Day.